MasterClass, where we're going to go over some level applications this afternoon. And so before we even get started, we're going to go ahead and get a poll question in there. And so I just want to see how many of you signed on today have ever tried a ConsoliDator Plus demo. And it could be whether you had one yourself, whether you've tried somebody else's, just really curious. And it looks like so far a majority of folks have not. So hopefully that will change after this class, because I really think that it's a great tool, and it certainly helps you understand this demo or this product a lot better. And so as I said, about more than a majority of you folks have not. So we'll talk more about that in future classes. But what are we going to go over today? So today's topics, to keep it brief and to keep it simple, we're going to talk about basic level monitoring, so how the ConsoliDator Plus is great for basic level monitoring. We're going to take a look at some pump control, and that's something that if you're familiar with Precision Digital products, you'll be familiar with how it operates, but we've obviously expanded the capability of our duplex and triplex pump control. We're going to take a look at some point level indication and Enunciator screens. And we're also going to look at some real-life application examples. So I have an application at the end that has actually happened, and it's really interesting. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So before we begin, what I want to let you know is that everyone here is on mute. So you will not be able to speak directly to me. You will be able to use the chat at the bottom left-hand of your screen to send in questions, and we'll answer them as we go. You will also receive a copy of the slide deck and a study guide that I made up immediately after the session. It'll come in your inbox. You'll be able to download both files. And if not, I have them on file, so you can always ask me. And then lastly, keep in mind that as we go through this presentation, half of it's going to be slideshow, and half of it's going to be me showing my demo on a webcam. And so when the webcam pops up, keep in mind that the window is adjustable, so if you don't see my entire screen, just go ahead and adjust your window. Alrighty? Alrighty, and we're going to go ahead. So the first screen that we're going to take a look at is what I consider just the basic level screen. Very, very basic here, and it's default. When you open up a consolidator as a factory sales unit, this is one of the default screens that you're going to see. And so one thing I want to point out here is that, first of all, each screen can be labeled so that the operator knows exactly what they're looking at. And so those labels, I typed that in, tanks 1 through 4. So I could have done tanks 1-4, however you want to do it. I just wanted to demonstrate for you that the screen names can be full phrases, so I wanted to write out the words through. We also have these bar graphs. Now, the reason why I harp on those so much is because it gives the customers a really easy visual indication of their level. If we take a look over at the right side and we see, 8,265.47 gallons, well, that's not always intuitive. That doesn't always tell an operator how much is actually, if they're at capacity or not. And so, but if they look at the bar graph of tank 1, which is actually located right here, so if you take a look at this bar graph, you'll notice that we're actually almost at the top there. We're almost nearly full. And so the bar graph is just a really great way to give a level indication. And I'll also point out the fact that each channel is also labeled. And again, those are totally customizable. You can name them whatever it is that you want. I just did tank 1, 2, 3, and 4, as you can see. And the other thing I wanted to point out is the fact that the units are all different. So we're reading tank 1 in gallons. We're reading tank 2 in fluid ounces. Tank 3 is being read in feet. And then lastly, tank 4 is being read in percentage. And the other thing I like to mention as well about the different units is the fact that we can also do automatic unit conversion. So if you scale, let's say you scale tank 1 in gallons, but you also want to see it in liters, well, you can change the units, and with some clever programming, we can actually do the unit conversion automatically. And so That said, we're going to take a look at how this screen actually looks on a real consolidator unit. And so, well, I thought we were going to. Well, my webcam doesn't want to pop up on me just yet. So we're going to go ahead and just continue, and I guess we'll come back to that. See, that's what happens when you do these types of presentations and they're recorded. Nothing seems to work out for you. So we took a look at the first screen with the 4 bar graphs, and that's, like I said, basic stuff. The bar graphs are blue. That's the default color. But one of the features on the device that's really nice is the fact that we can actually change the colors on this unit. So we can change the bar graph color, and we can change the channel color. And with this particular screen, I called it the 5-zone bar graph. And the reason why is because basically what we want to do is, in this particular case, the customer wants to maintain their level between this mark and this mark, or between the A2 and the A3 alarm markers. So when the level is between those 2 markers, everything's fine. And the bar graph is green because everything is nice. But what would happen if the level starts to rise and it goes up to that A2 alarm marker? Well, the consolidator will then turn yellow, or I'm sorry, the bar graph and the channel can turn yellow. Now, as I mentioned, the colors are fully customizable. So on your unit, if you were to set it up this way, you could make it so that it turns pink when it gets to above that A2 level. But most of the time, people are going to use green for good, yellow for something's going wrong, and then red for bad. And so that's how I have it set up here. Now, the other thing I want to mention here is the fact that we have this alert key down here. And so that was a menu button before, and now it says alert, now that we got into our alarm mode. And so I'm going to talk more about that later, but just keep in mind that that went from menu to alert. Now, what happens if the level continues to rise and it gets all the way to that A1 marker? Well, now we can have the bar graph and the channel turn red. The other thing, too, is the fact that this will actually flash. So the bar graph and the channel, when it turns red, can be programmed to flash to really draw the operator's attention to something going wrong here. And as I mentioned, it doesn't have to be red. It can be any color you want. We chose red here because that's what folks typically use, and it also grabs attention. And so, again, that alert button down there, what do you think that's all about? I mean, the screen's yelling at us. Everything's turning red and flashing. We clearly know something is wrong. Why do we need that alert button? Well, first of all, the alert button, when you press it, oh, you know what? I forgot about our second poll. So since we just talked about the consolidator being able to change colors based on alarm set point, I'm just curious, what's your favorite color? And keep in mind, there are no wrong answers here. I will admit there are some answers that are better than others, but there are no wrong answers. And let's take a look at what some folks out there are saying. All right. You know, I was expecting a lot more people to like bacon, but that's all right. That's okay. And so like I was saying, when we press that alert button, that brings us to a screen that looks a lot like this, the alert screen. And so basically what you see here is both alarms that are currently triggered. Now, in our case, for what we're seeing here, this is just the two alarms that we saw on that previous screen, the yellow and the red. You know, those two high alarms, since those are both active, those are both showing up on this screen. But what's really nice about this is the fact that, let's say there was an alarm on a different screen and we weren't looking at it. You know, maybe a high flow alarm came over on a different screen we weren't looking at. The good thing about that alert button is the fact that this will keep track of all of the alarms that are active, regardless if they're on the screen that you're currently viewing. So that's really nice. And the other thing we can do right from this screen is we can actually acknowledge individual alarms. and you'll see that we can actually press this acknowledge button right here. And that will go ahead and acknowledge the alarm. Now, the other thing we can do is we can drill in a little further. So let's say we're on the high alarm, the A1 alarm. If I press the right arrow key to drill in there a little bit further, I actually can see the fact that, well, what does it show me? Well, first of all, it tells me that it's on. Well, that's pretty obvious, but it tells you that it's on. But it also tells you which channel is in alarm. So we know so right now we know it's a 5-zone bar graph that's in alarm. We also know that the level is currently at 76 feet 2 inches. And lastly, it will also tell us exactly which input, the physical 4 to 20 milliamp input that is tied to that alarm. So in this case, it's my demo input, because that's literally what I have plugged into my unit as a demo input. And it also gives you the milliamp reading. So we're currently reading 16 some odd milliamps. Now, if you had this alarm tied to multiple channels, you would see multiple channels listed there. But in this case, we just have the one, just to keep it simple. And so that's really nice, the fact that we can go in there, and again, you can acknowledge it even from this screen. You know, if you didn't acknowledge it last time and you wanted to drill in and see more information, well, you can acknowledge it from here. And so that's really nice. It's a really useful screen. Now, one application that comes up quite a bit, and I'm sure most of you have sold at least 1 or 2 ProViews in your life for pump control. More specifically, for pump control with alternation. And that's an application that's very popular for most of our products. But we took it a step further with the ConsoliDator Plus. Now, I'm going to go over a few things that we've already talked about. So first of all, again, I can name the screen whatever I want. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be anything. You can name it whatever you want, or you can have no name at all. In this case, I just wanted to name it Duplex Pump Controller. And you'll also notice that we're reading our stump level in feet and inches. Now, that's really nice because that's a very popular way to read level. A lot of folks that use our products for level, 9 times out of 10, if you ask them, they want to read their tank height or sump height as opposed to a volumetric reading. And so that's why I have this program to show you in feet and inches. The other thing we have on here are these pump statuses. Now, this is where it gets really cool. So, just like on a regular pump controller, as our level comes up, let's say to the A1, the alarm mark right there, pump number 1 will turn on. And not only will it be running, but it will actually show you that it is on. So that's really cool. So you can actually see that the pump is on. I could change those words. I believe you can change those words to say something else. But for now, we'll just stick to the on and off. And then when the level goes up to that point, the pump turns on, what's going to happen? The pump pumps down, and the pump turns off, and we're all good. But in this particular case, that's not what's going to happen. So the other thing we're looking at here is the fact that we have the pump status, whether they're on or off, but we also have the runtime and the cycle count that we're keeping track of, and that's brand new for this product. So not only can we show you, exactly whether it's on or off, but we can show you how long each pump has been running and how many times they've cycled back and forth. Because remember, these are alternating relays. This is a duplex pump controller. And so to ensure that the pumps are wearing evenly, we have that information available. Now, in this particular scenario, our level didn't go down at all when pump 1 came on. But you'll notice that pump 2 came on and pump 1 turned off. So they switched, they alternated, but the level didn't go anywhere. Well, the reason why I'm pointing that out is because you can alternate based on time. So not only can we alternate based on the level set points, but we can base it on elapsed pump time. So for example, I have my demo set up so that every 30 seconds, it is switching between pump 1 and pump 2. regardless of the level. And so that's a really important feature, and that's actually going to be huge in the real-life application we're going to take a look at later. And so again, just like in our other products, this is a traditional duplex pump controller with the added benefits of being able to see your pump statuses, runtimes, cycle counts, and being able to alternate based on runtime and or level set points. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out here is these soft keys down here. Those say reset relay 1 and 2. And so the reason why I have those there is because let's say at the end of the day you have a customer that wants to reset all their pump information. They want to start every shift from scratch. What they can do is press one of those two buttons and confirm that they want to reset it, and now they can start the next day with fresh pump information. Now, I also mentioned we could do duplex and triplex pump control. And so this screen here is actually the same thing we just took a look at, except it has 3 pumps on it. I wanted to show you that we can just add pumps to it. Now, what's really, really cool about this particular this screen is the fact that I can turn it into from a duplex pump controller into a triplex pump controller in about 30 seconds. I quite literally just add a relay to the alternating cycle, and it adds it in there. It adds that third pump. It will alternate just the way it did with the first 2, and the display itself will actually resize itself to accommodate for the additional information. If you were to do something like that on, let's say, a PLC in an HMI, well, you'd have to reconfigure how the display looks to get the added graphics in words or letters, numbers. And you'd also do a little bit of programming on the back end of the PLC to get that third pump to alternate with everyone else. With our unit, that's not the case. And so again, the other thing I wanted to demonstrate here is the fact that I talked about we can change the color of the bar graph in the channel based on alarms. Well, we don't have to do it on alarms. Okay, you can actually have the bar graph be any color you want. And so for this particular screen, I chose this, what I consider a really ugly orange color, just to show you that it can be any color you want. Not only that, but the bar graph doesn't even have to match the channel colors. So as you can see here, we are actually reading from this mystery tank, and so this mystery tank is reading out in bacon. And the reason why I have it reading out in bacon is to hopefully get a couple chuckles out of you, but really to show you that we can actually add custom engineering units to this. So you don't have to choose from a list of gallons, liters, feet. You can add your own custom units. And so in this case, I chose bacon. And again, the colors don't have to match. Pink and black do not usually go with orange. So that's why I chose that, just to demonstrate that this is all fully customizable. And again, the same thing applies here. We have, each pump has its own status. So you can see that they're all up here. And it will still keep track of the cycle counts, the run times, and all of that. And we can still do the alternating based on time and or level, even if we have 3 pumps, 4 pumps, 5 pumps. The point is you can add as many pumps as you want to the system, and it is really, really simple. Now, this next screen is kind of cool. So on our legacy products, like the ProView, we can do what's called dual scaling, and that's really nice for level applications. And so basically what that would mean is, let's say you wanted to bring in a 4 to 20 signal, and your customer wants to measure their level in gallons and percentage full. Well, with a ProView, you can actually do that. You can bring in one signal and display it 2 different ways. It's a really nice feature. Customers really like it on the ProView for level applications. Well, we took it a million steps further with the ConsoliDator Plus. And what I mean by that is, rather than having the option of only having 2 scales for one signal input, we can actually have 160 completely unique readings based off just one process signal. Now, that is a lot. Is that ever going to be used? Most likely not. But just gives you an understanding of how flexible this device really is. If you had 160 unique engineering units that you wanted to read one tank in, you could do it with this device. And so that's all this screen is showing you, is the fact that I have one bar graph because we're only reading from one tank, but I'm reading the volume in cubic feet, we're reading the weight in kilograms, percentage full, and we're actually reading the height. So that's pretty cool. Now, the last hypothetical application we're going to take a look at is an Enunciator panel, but it's a little different than what you might be thinking about. So I call this our Enunciator panel, and I really wish my webcam was enabled because this screen's actually really cool to see in person. But anyways, so what we have here is we have 4 different tanks that we're looking at. We have a feed tank, an oil tank, a water tank, and an unknown tank. And they all have a color. So the feed, oil, and water tank are all green. And why do you think that is? Well, because just like the consolidator is showing you, everything's all good, the level is ideal, and all is well. And so what will happen is when the level gets to a certain point that you don't want, it gets into an undesirable point, we can actually have the consolidator change the wording on the screen, right? So pay attention to the feed tank for 1 second. Right now it says all good, but if we get into an alarm state, I can change it so the wording changes to needs emptying. And so the reason why I like that is because a customer may not need to know exactly how much is in their tank to begin with. They just need to know if something's going wrong, if everything's all right. And so this is a great way for a customer to be able to look at the screen and instantly know what's going on. And they'll know that they're going to have to go over and get they have to empty out that tank. And if you hold on for 1 moment, folks, I'm actually just having a little bit of technical difficulties. Is that what they're saying? Okay. So now I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. Okay. So again, we want to pay attention to the feed tank. As my level increases, it goes to needs emptying. If I go up even further, we get this one here. The water tank goes to full. And this unknown tank here, it just says break. That's because we lost the signal input to that channel. And so, again, just wanted to show you that because I think it's really, really cool that we can actually show level based with words and letters, not just numbers and figures. So I thought that was really cool. Okay. Again, I apologize. Having a little bit of difficulties with this program. Nope, got it. All right. Hey, sorry for the bumpiness here. This is actually my first time using this program, so we'll do better the next time, I promise. All righty. So now that we've taken a look at the Enunciator screens, I want to move on before we end here to the actual application I wanted to take a look at. And so the actual application is a level application, and it has to do with pump alternation, and it has to do with time. So here we go. So you'll notice here this is a schematic. Now, unfortunately, I don't have real installation photos of this particular installation. That's because they're challenging to get. But anyways, what I wanted to show you here is the fact that we have, come on now, we have 5 pressure transducers that are all measuring level, and the Consolidator Plus is powering every single one of them. So the Consolidator Plus powers all the devices, brings the 4 to 20 milliamp signal into it, displays it accordingly. So that's pretty simple stuff. That's pretty basic. We could do that with any of our panel meters. And we also have relays for alarming. So you'll see that they have here, which again, that's actually available from Precision Digital. You can get a nice little light and horn. That's done with the relays. And then we also have a couple remote, like a cloud-based units. So they have a few alarms and signals going back to a device that can they can access remotely, so they can see what's going on. But they have a few relays on some pumps, and those pumps are being alternated. But what's really nice is the fact that they're being alternated based on just time. So what I mean by that is every 48 hours, they want the pumps to alternate unless certain conditions are met. Now, I'm not sure if you can read all of that, but you'll get a copy of the slide deck anyways. Now, in this particular case, every 48 hours, they want the pumps to alternate unless, of course, certain conditions are met. That being a pressure is too high on a certain section, or maybe the pressure is too low, anything like that. They call it out all here, and you can read through it for yourself. But the point of it is, the reason I'm even mentioning this is the fact that if a customer came to us, let's say 4 years ago with this type of application, there's nothing we have in our arsenal that could accomplish this. We didn't have anything that could alternate based on time. Well, actually, we didn't have anything that controlled based on time, except for on delays and off delays. But aside from actually using time of day with a real-time clock, this is the first and only product that we have that can do that. And so I wanted to share this application with you because it's something that could only be done with the ConsoliDator Plus from Precision Digital. And that's just one of the many reasons why the ConsoliDator Plus is the perfect level accessory. And so with that, that is all I have for you for this week. Again, I apologize for the bumpiness of the presentation. We're going to smooth things out for next week, and I appreciate your time. Now, again, you're going to get a copy of the slide deck. You're going to get a study guide that goes into all of these topics, and it goes a little further than what I could go through here because I only have a half hour. So if you want to read through that. And I'm actually going to stick around for a few more minutes if anyone has any type of questions, comments. I'm always looking for ways to improve. So if there's something about this session that you'd like to see done differently, better, that's okay too. So our next session is going to be next Monday at the same time, 4 o'clock. We're going to use the exact same platform. We're going to use this ReadyTalk platform. Unfortunately, I don't think I can automatically enroll you all for the next one, so I'm going to be sending out another email. So you have to go in and register for next week's. Luckily, it only takes 30 seconds. And so that's about it. That's actually, hold on, let's see. We have a couple questions. We have a couple more minutes, so let's take a look at some of these questions. All righty. How many tanks can be displayed on a screen? That's a great question. I probably should have addressed that in the beginning. The answer is 8. We can fit 8 tanks onto a screen. And actually, not even tanks. We can fit 8 objects on a screen. What do I mean by that? So on this screen here, you will notice that we have a bar graph and 3 channels. So technically, I have 3 channels or objects on this screen. Even though these are not scaled analog channels, the pump 1 and pump 2, they are objects that go on the screen. So you can call them tanks, you could call them pumps. The answer is we can fit 8 objects onto each screen. That was a great question. Another one about screens. How many screens can be programmed? That's another great question. The answer is 20. We can actually have 20 screens. And again, 8 objects per screen. So in total, we can actually display 160 objects with the unit itself. And another question, can we use Modbus for the level readings? Aha. So the short answer is yes, we can use Modbus. The long answer is, well, we have a class on that in a few weeks. So we'll hold off on the Modbus talk for now. But yes, we can use Modbus. To keep it short and simple, we can be used on Modbus RTU as a master, and we can also be used as a slave. And then on the Ethernet side of things, we can actually do Modbus TCP/IP using Ethernet, and that would be used as a Modbus server, as they call it now, if we change the nomenclature. And let me just see if we have any other questions. Somebody has just asked, they just ordered a consolidator for Open Channel Flow, and they need help to set it up this week. And the answer to your question, Randy, is yeah, I'd be available to help you with that. And in fact, actually next Monday is we're going to talk about Flow next week, and Open Channel Flow is a big part of that. So I would love to see if we can get some pictures for next week's class, and maybe we can talk about that particular application at the end. I have a question here that says, can they be tied into power plants' DCS systems? So I'm going to be totally honest with you. Maybe. I'm not an expert on DCS systems. I'll never pretend to be. I know the acronym, but that's something. If you want to talk about that offline, we can definitely see what we can and cannot do there. Somebody also asked, do we provide the audible alarm, or does that get purchased from others? So the answer is yes, we do have the audible alarm. And actually, in the study guide that you're all going to be receiving in a few moments, I actually put a link to our webpage for that audible alarm. So you'll be able to just click on that as you're reading through. They'll bring you right there to the spec sheets and everything, so you'll see that there. Someone asked, who are your biggest competitors and why are you better? I love that question. So, who are our biggest competitors? Well, I think it depends on which market you're looking at here, right? So for panel meters, I would say that Red Lion might be our biggest competitor. And why are we better? Well, number one, because you get to work with me. But no, in all reality, I don't like to say we're better or worse than anybody. I mean, everyone has great products. Everyone does what they do well. I think our products have competitive advantages, and there are certain things that our products can do that maybe others can't. But I don't like to say that I'm better than any one company. So hopefully that answers your question. And then another person asked, what is the typical delivery time? All great questions, by the way. Typical delivery time on these right now is 10 days, if my memory serves me correctly. But just in case I'm lying to you, you can always go on our website, go to the PD9000 product page, and we'll give you real-time inventory levels, and if we don't have something in stock, we'll tell you exactly how many are going to be how many days it's going to take. All right, so we have another question about what classifies as an object. I think you may have already asked this before when I addressed it, but anyways, what classifies as an object? That's a really interesting question, and I'm trying to figure out a way to explain it. So it's basically anything that can be shown on a screen. Now that might not mean a whole lot to you right now, because I'd have to show you what that means with the programming. So it's basically anything that you can display on a screen. So that could be a channel, that could be the relay. It could be just the raw input. So for example, you could have just the 4-to-20 signal being displayed on the screen. So again, it's interesting. It's hard to answer that question, but it's 8 of anything you can put on the screen. If you want me to explain that in further detail, you can always give me a call or send me an email. Does the PC software have a simulator or demo mode? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? So first of all, I didn't even mention there is PC software, and it's free. It's totally free. It makes setting this device up a million times easier, and we're going to take a look at that a lot later. We're going to have a whole section on programming using the software. But to address the second half of the question there, if it has a simulator or demo mode, the software does not have a demo mode, but we do have ConsoliDator Plus demo units available. And those come with, with a standard set of screens that you can show. If you're interested in taking a look at what we have for a demo, I'd be happy to talk to you. They're really interesting. And I'm actually, doing this class, I'm actually using a demo unit that I took. Let's see. Someone asked the question, can you program the consolidator to perform a pump test? That's an interesting question. I don't know exactly what you're getting at. I'd have to know more information about what you're trying to accomplish to answer that. So that's a maybe for now. But you can always send me an email or give me a call afterwards. Someone also asked a really great question on the Enunciator Panel screen that we looked at. And just to give you a reminder, it would be this one here. So on the Enunciator Panel screen, do you have the option to change colors of the boxes as they alarm? The answer to that is yes, you can. I just made the conscious decision not to for this, just for simplicity's sake. But yes, you can have them change colors and change the wording based on alarms. Also, another thing to mention is these boxes here, they don't have to be words. If you could actually make a screen with 4 tanks, and if you take away the bar graphs and you're left with just the channels, this is what it would look like, except it would have numbers instead of words. Somebody also asked how many variables can be displayed on one page at a time. So again, that goes back to the 8 objects. So if you're talking about variables, I'm assuming you mean process variables. So it can be 8. Now, that could be 8 level readings. It could be 8 flow readings. It could be 4 level and 4 flow. Doesn't matter. You can mix and match it. But the answer is you can have a maximum of 8 objects or variables displayed on one screen. And I think that's all the questions we have today. That is really great. I really appreciate the feedback. I also got a little bit of feedback here from folks on how I can improve better next time, which is great. I really appreciate that. So if you have any more, please let me know.